Hi, I'm AJ with Humbucker Soup, and I want to talk to you guys about a bunch of the different router bits you might need to use when you're building a guitar. One of the most important tools when you're building guitars by hand is a router, and there are several different bits that go along with that. They all have different uses, and sometimes there can be pros and cons to using different types of router bits for certain jobs. So I'm going to go through some of these that I have laid out on the table here. This first one is just a roundover bit and can simply be used for something like a Fender Stratocaster, where you just want to bevel the outside edges of a guitar. The next one I have here is just a 45, and these work really well if you want to bevel the edges of, say, a pick guard. If you're going to do something like a truss rod, you just want a straight bit like this one. There's no bearing or anything on this, so you would probably want to use something like a bushing and then some type of guide or jig so that you can get a nice straight cut. One of the most common bits used for building guitars is a flush trim router bit, meaning that it has a bearing so that you can basically duplicate whatever your template is. And this one just has some high-speed tubing on it to keep the bearing in place, or some of these nicer ones actually have a stop on them. But this would be used for something like cutting pickup cavities or control cavities. And this one is a 1/2 inch diameter and also has a 1/2 inch cutting height. So this is probably the most common. And then if you want to do the inside corners where it's a little bit tighter and you want to keep it really neat, you can use this one that has a 3/8 inch diameter, also has the 1/2 inch cutting height. If you have a really thin template and you want to just get the first couple of passes, you could use something like this that only has a 1/4 inch cutting height. And if you want to do something really deep like a control cavity and your router won't quite plunge deep enough, you may need to get something like this that has a 1 inch cutting height, and this one also has a 1/2 inch cutting diameter. Now if you really wanted to, you could use something like this to route a neck if you wanted to go around the outside of a template. But they're pretty small, and when you're using really hardwoods like maple, it can be very easy to damage the wood. So for something like that, I usually recommend using something like this, which is a compression bit. It cuts both uphill and downhill, so it gives you a really clean cut. And this has bearings on both the top and the bottom, which makes it really versatile. An option for cutting like outside edges of a body. So all of these are pretty much flush trim. You could use something like this for the body, but again, you've got just one straight cut there. It does have bearings on top and bottom, so you can use that to cut with the grain. So for example, if you get to a spot on the body where the grain direction changes, you could flip the whole thing over and adjust the height of this and then continue routing. Or you can use the big compression bit like this one for a body that cuts both uphill and downhill. And these will usually give you a really, really nice clean cut. And these larger diameter router bits like this usually make it a lot easier to use. You can take a bigger chunk without tearing a whole piece of the guitar out. I hope you learned a few new things about router bits, and we'll see you next time.